So here's an alarming stat for you. So after the age of 30, we lose between 3% and 5% of our body's muscle mass every decade. That means by the time you get up to 50, it can be going on to as much as 15% thereafter, which is very alarming. And this just accelerates as you get into your mid-50s, 60s and 70s, to the point at which it's just so difficult to get that back. I want to share with you some of the tips and tricks that you can apply, that you should be doing in your 30s, that if you do them now will have a profound impact in later life. So the sooner you start, the better it is. But crucially, even if you're starting later, it still can have a profound impact. So let's get into it. Well, the reality is that as you get past 50, into your 50s and 60s and beyond, and into your 70s, there's nothing you can do to get that muscle back, because it's much harder to build muscle as you get older than it is to retain it. So what am I saying? I'm saying that if you're in your 30s now, you need to clearly start making an effort to preserve that muscle. And by the way, it's so much easier to build it when you're 30. It's hard, it's still hard, don't get me wrong, but it's so much easier to build it when you're younger. So the big lesson is start early for all you young people who are out there. So what do you do if you get older then and you've kind of missed those opportunities? Well, the simple response is that you just need to start. There is no other kind of answer to fixing the problem. Now, and when I say start, what I mean is that you have to start prioritizing it. Now, something I talk a lot about with social media and friends of mine, people I know who I've been training with regularly over the years, they know I say this a lot, and a lot of them have adopted this approach. And it comes down to identity. And we tend to do the things on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, even annually, based on who we believe we are. Because subconsciously we want to be staying true to who we believe we are. One of the important factors, there's lots of science to back this up as well. So if that's one of the core things that drives pretty much everything that we do, then it's not necessarily about motivation or discipline, which obviously you'd expect that to be one of the core requirements to making sure you get to the gym, but it's about core beliefs and identity. I learned this from speaking to a number of people who are into fitness, do particularly well, personal trainers, and they said to me one of the key things that you can do is making sure you do it on a regular basis. In other words, you either pick specific days that you do it and you stick to that, or you set a limit. So you maybe say 3 times a week, 4 times a week, or whatever it is that you've decided you're going to stick to. You do that for 60 days or more. Now, ideally, if you do it for 90 days, it's a bigger chance of sticking. Now, why is that? It's because after 60 days, we tend to form habits, and these habits become ingrained in our psyche. Ideally 90 days is the time at which they start to stick and form part of your identity. The big thing that I also got told, really, if you want to have because it's easy to kind of drop some of those days, something will come up. So if you've only done 2 days, but it comes to the weekend and you're going out or whatever, something's happening, you might miss a day. So then you've only done 2. And you might feel bad about that, but the fact is you've missed a day. But because your identity is focused on 3 days a week, it doesn't feel so bad because it's realised that you've only missed a day. So what do you do instead? Well, the idea is to build an identity that's overcompensating. So this is how I'd explain to me. If you aim to go strength training to the gym every day, then that forms this identity of you being a person who works out every day. Now you could say, well, that's a bit extreme. Why would I aim to do that? Well, the thing is, you never end up actually going every single day. And this is the one thing that I've realized, is that even though that's my aim and my goal, I don't end up doing that every week. Yet my identity is I work out every day, it's non-negotiable, and I will always look to fit that in to the week. And because that's my identity, when I don't do that, it feels uncomfortable. And that's the trick. You want to do something as a habit that when you're not doing it, you feel uncomfortable. The really weird thing is that if you go like 2 or 3 days without training, or let's just say you go on holiday and for whatever reason you can't fit it in, your body actually starts to ache in these really unusual ways because it's just so used to doing it and it almost craves it. I'll be honest with you, I can't even go on holiday now without finding a way to get some exercise in because it's core to my identity. Anyway, that's one of the key things that I wanted to talk about as well in terms of getting that into your identity. The next thing I want to talk about is what you eat. You've heard this, your body is made in the kitchen, and this is so true, right? So as long as you're getting in those regular gym sessions, and obviously I've gone to the extreme, but starting with the extreme and working back, you might only get 4 or 5 in or whatever. But what you eat is certainly going to be important. Now, protein is something that's crucial, obviously, to not only building and retaining muscle, but having enough of that in your body also satisfies you, so you're less hungry. Now, I think people broadly know this, but what they don't understand is that not eating food, because it's one of the things that people do to try to lose weight. I'm talking about eating small amounts of food, and as we get older we tend to do this. Small amounts of food actually causes your body to cling on to fat. Whereas when you're eating enough protein, it's using that protein to build more muscle, which is super important. And it obviously makes you fuller, it's a more satiating meal to have, so it just makes a lot more sense. So you get this situation of not skinny fat, which is what happens when you don't have enough protein, you're actually building and retaining the muscle. So that's super important that you do that. And you can have a look now, ChatGPT or others, and you can give you that calculation versus your height and weight based on how much protein you need. Now, in my daily, I have about 180 grams of protein daily, so that's what I've worked out to be my optimal amount, but I don't know what yours would be, but you certainly need to look into that. Anyway, that's the next thing, getting your diet dialed in. Obviously, I'm mainly kind of meat-based diet, but I have some fruit as well. A little bit of vegetables, but it's mainly kind of meat-based protein. The next thing is supplementation. So lots of studies now obviously demonstrating that certainly a good multivitamin is really important. So just have that as a basic, because if you're going to be reducing down in other areas of your diet, then having a good multivitamin is certainly going to help make sure you've got all those essential minerals. And the way to do that, of course, is just something that you can take on a daily basis. There are other supplementations that I could get into, but I don't want to get into that. But there is one other supplement that I do want to talk about, and that's creatine. It gets a little bit of a bad rap, but I think more recently, and the bad rap is always bloating, that seems to be the big one, which is why a lot of women tend not to take it. However, it's a little bit of a myth. It does put the water into the muscle rather into fat, so if they feel a bit bigger, it's because it's put it in their muscle, not in any fat, so it's not bloating in that respect. And there's cognitive benefits as well now being shown from creatine as well. Again, as you're getting older, these things become even more important. Helps you fill out the muscle, build the muscle, but also has these cognitive effects. And that is one of the most researched supplements out there, so certainly take heed of that. VO2 max, your kind of heart rate and, how you get fitter from doing cardio. You need a certain degree of that. That's certainly important. But there's lots of benefits shown that you can just get your exercise really from walking. And I'm walking on the beach today to get my daily steps in. In fact, as you get older, overcompensating from running can actually be detrimental. So, you might want to consider cutting back on some of those because they takes up the time, takes up energy that your body could be using for walking and going to the gym, which arguably, certainly as you get older, are more important. Sprints are quite good if you can fit some sprints in. And as you get older, that's probably a better thing rather than just wearing out on your joints. Walking is by far the most beneficial thing that you can do. And obviously there's lots of minimum numbers given around what's best for walking. 10,000 steps is probably realistic for most people that you can fit in a day. And if you're in an office job, like I have been for most of my life, then finding opportunities to walk around in the office. This is why the big benefit of working from home is you've got more time. You can go out for walks because your time is not being consumed by traveling. So that certainly happens. Just on the fitness side of things, the crucial thing is you need to start doing it now. The side benefits are that you are putting yourself in an environment of like-minded people. And I've talked about, you are the average of the 5 people that you spend most time with. But once you start to adopt this identity, it becomes inherent with how you live your day-to-day life, because when you go into a gym environment very often, there's people you get to know there, you get inspired by the people that are in there, you start to look at, this guy looks really lean and works out, and you start to look at what they're doing for their exercises, and maybe you start adopting it. It just changes your mindset over time. And environments are super important. The environment that you put yourself in is going to have a huge impact on your life. If the environment that you're in and that you are the average of the 5 people that you bump into and have contact with, just from a fitness perspective, then that's probably the way that you're going to look. My advice to everybody, just on gyms by the way, is find the best gym that you can afford in your area. Might not be the closest, might not necessarily be the most convenient, but it's probably got the best equipment, it's got the type of people in that environment that you could probably aspire to be in. I don't need to tell you what that is, you know inherently what that means. You'll feel inspired, and if you're spending a lot of your days there, you want to be the best, going to the best one, rather than going to an old beat up gym where equipment doesn't work and the people in there don't necessarily inspire you. Okay, this is all about fitness over 50, but starting early makes a big difference. And for all you executives out there who say, I just don't have time, then there's another alternative. And this is finding an opportunity in the future to think about, how do I prioritize my health over my job? And I talk about this a lot, and this is realistically thinking about, is this corporate life going to allow me to have the time to focus on my health? And at some point you're going to have to make that decision about that hierarchy of what becomes more important to you. And I talk about, hacking the corporate exit, finding a way to break from the 9 to 5 and establish a portfolio career. There are other videos that talk about that. And I think that's probably one of the answers to solving your longer term health and freedom, by the way. But of course, to do that, you need to supplement with different income streams potentially. And you know what? There's so many opportunities now to backfill with different income streams. It's never been easier. And for all you senior executives out there, who worry about that. There's other videos that I'm doing about that. And even now you can look at my webpage, www.darrenargyle.com, and you'll find tons of playbooks, downloads and things on there that you can use to help inspire your corporate exit at some point. By the way, this is all about planning. The sooner you do it, the more chance you have of being able to build that regular kind of drumbeat of new income sources to fuel a life of reclaiming your health and freedom. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my walk on this beautiful beach here. And yeah, Darren out.